Let me know in the comments. Oh, I think we're live. Oh, here we go. Awesome. I am excited about this morning. Well, it's morning for me. I'm not sure. Apparently, we've got people all over the world. Someone's tuned into 1:30 a.m. So Chris says this better be good. Definitely. I'll try and make it as good as possible. This is going to be a ton of fun. Now, I hope you can hear me at the moment. If you can hear me, let me know in the comments where in the world you are and what time it is for you. And if you're watching the replay after this, let me know anyway. I'm curious because I wonder how many people have stayed up super, super late. Oh, we've got people. It's people from Sydney. Andre's from Sydney. Awesome. Australians represent. Oh, by the way, I'm in Brisbane, Australia. So it's 10:30 in the morning for me. So I'm fresh. I'm feeling good. So other people. Oh, we've got people in from Hong Kong. Okay, awesome. Miami, Florida. Okay, so more people from Florida. Cool, 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 cool. Virginia. Okay, so a lot of Americans tuning in. Awesome. I don't know if you guys know. I actually lived in Kentucky for a while. It was like 3.5 years. It was great. It was awesome. I miss living in Kentucky, mainly for the people, but also for the food. Oh man, chicken and waffles. An American barbecue. It's so good. I've got people in from Brazil as well. Awesome. Bem-vindo. Okay, cool. So, obviously you can hear me. How about the bass? Can you hear the bass all right? Let me know. I'd love to hear a yes in the comments. Oh, we've got John here. Yep. Cool. Oh, and just in case you don't know, there is about a 10-second delay from when I speak to when you hear stuff, and then there's like a bit of delay from, when I can hear things that you say and all that kind of stuff. But yes, okay, awesome. We've got bass. Perfect. That is amazing. Okay, so now we've got all that sorted out. I would really recommend that you either wear headphones or, plug your computer or your phone into a decent speaker. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hear the bass that well. Try not to use your your phone speakers for this. That's not ideal. I get people commenting on videos all the time like, "Oh, I can't hear the bass," and then I always write like, "What are you listening on?" And they go, "Oh, my phone." I'm like, come on, guys, you gotta, if you want to hear the bass, you gotta, have something that can recreate those lower frequencies, and a phone just won't cut it. So, once again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. In case you don't know who I am, my name's Luke. I run this channel and a company called Become a Bassist, and my whole goal is to bring you no BS bass lessons to get you playing better bass, having more fun, and becoming the best bassist that you can be. So no matter where you are in the world, I'm sending my absolutely biggest, warmest hugs to you. It's a crazy time we're living in, so I really hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying well. I hope your loved ones are staying safe and well as well. Whether you're in a total lockdown or a partial lockdown, or even if you haven't been affected by everything that's going on at all, welcome, and I hope you have enough toilet paper as well, because apparently that's a thing. Got to have a clean bum hole during the apocalypse, right? So. Today, if you're dealing with quarantine or self-isolation or anything like that, I want to give you a break from just endlessly streaming Netflix or refreshing the news or scrolling through your Facebook feed, any other little thing that might be slowly driving you mad. We're going to be talking all things bass. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be answering questions about how to sound good by yourself, even if you don't have a song or a practice track to help out. I've got questions about bass amps and all kinds of other stuff. And of course, I'll be taking questions from you right now on the stream as well. I've even jumped in a little bit early. People were super early on this one and answered a bunch of questions in the comments. Hopefully you can scroll back up and see them. But like I said, it's going to be fun. I'm planning on making as many terrible jokes as I can think of. Don't worry, you don't have to laugh at them. I can do all the laughing. Not a problem at all. And actually, and Arnie is already here, hanging out. Arnie. Oh, hey, pup. How's it going? Oh, look at him. So he's already hanging out. Awesome. So he's going to be hanging out behind us, and we're going to be doing everything all with a quarantine beard. Look at this thing. It's glorious. Amazing. It's been a while since I had a shave. So let's jump into the very first question. Now, this is one I got by email on. Actually, when was this? I can't remember when I got this question. But the question goes. While practicing a song, I generally use backing tracks or the song itself to play with. While playing like this, I feel like I can play it okay, but when I play only the bass with no backing track, it does not sound to me like I'm doing good. What do you recommend to understand what is wrong with it so I can practice and start making myself sound better? This is a great question. This is an amazing question because this is something that I know I definitely struggled with before. Oh, I'm a bit out of focus. How about that? Let's try that. Okay. Yeah, so it's very, very common to, sound really good and feel really good while you're playing with the actual track or a backing track. But once you take that away, it can sound a bit nebulous. Maybe it doesn't sound as good. Maybe it doesn't feel as in the pocket, which, it can be a problem, right? So that is a very good question and one I hope to answer. So the answer to the question is if you're relying on the backing track, you want to slowly wean yourself off it. So you can play with it when you want, but if it's not there, then it's not a problem at all. So how do you do this? Well, let's say you're learning... let's say, okay, something easy. Uptown Funk, the bass line for that, super, super easy. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. And then there's like little fills. Here, let's do this one. Yeah, so if you've got something like that, you're playing along with the track, it sounds good, it feels good, awesome. You take that away, doesn't sound good, doesn't feel as good, that's a problem. So what you do, wean yourself off. So if you have a track, like the actual song, play with that. Get really, really good at playing with the track. I would love to play a song for you right now to demonstrate this, but I think if I do that, YouTube blocks that piece of content because, copyright, content ID, all that kind of stuff. So I can't actually do that, but what I can do is grab my handy little phone, and what I'm going to do is make a little practice track. Super, super easy. I've got a metronome app right here. It's free, it doesn't cost a thing, and you can make little drum tracks. It's super, super easy. Yeah? So, hopefully you can hear that. Actually, I might just do a bit of this. Can that go any louder? Okay, that's as much volume as we have, unfortunately. Okay, but that's not a problem. I might actually do this a bit. There we go. So you start off, pardon me. So you start off playing with the track, and then you slowly take that away. So you've got just the drum part. So 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so let's say you're doing that. The next step is to take some of that drum part away. So you've started with the whole track, which I can't play for you. Actually, there's another step in between. So if you've got a whole track, try and find one without the bass. So I actually did look for this. There is actually a bassless track for Uptown Funk. So you can play along with that so there's no bass part to kind of support you. That's like the second step. And this would be the third step, is actually making your own practice track like this. So then when you're feeling really comfortable with that, what you can do is you start taking parts of the drum track away. So right now I've got bass, we've got bass, hat, snare, hat, bass, hat, snare, hat, just like that, but just faster. So what you can do is just take half of those away. So instead of having bass, hat, snare, hat, bass, hat, snare, hat, let's go bass, snare, bass, snare. Bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare. Makes sense, right? And then you play along with that. 2, 3, and 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Yeah? Next step after that is to take away even more of the drum track. People who are members of my Level Up Your Groove program, this probably sounds very familiar to you. It's exactly what we talk about. So instead of having bass and snare, just have the bass drum, just the kick drum. 2, 3, 4. 3, I can't do that one-handed. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And it's really handy at this stage to know exactly where all the notes fit in terms of the drum track, so where the bass hits are, where the snare hits are, so you can exactly replicate the bass line and know exactly when you're in time. And of course, the next step is instead of having bass on 1 and 3, just have 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, just like that. Yeah? Hopefully this is making sense. Frank asks, what app am I using? This one is just called Pro Metronome. It's just like a free one that you can get on the App Store. I'm not sure if this one is available on Android, but if not, like there's plenty of like drum track metronome apps out there. They're all free. They're all pretty much good. Absolutely get your hands on one of these if you can. And the next step after just having 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, then we're going to half the speed. So instead of going at the speed we're at, we're going to go half of that. So that's going to give us one hit every 2 bars. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, and oh, I was a bit okay. So this is where it gets a bit tricky, right? Because you have less to rely on. Before we had the whole track, then a bassless version of the track, then a whole drum track, and then we kind of slowly cut down. So it gets a little bit harder here when you've got 2 bars of nothing. So let's give that a try though. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, Oh, I'm early. Still early. Need to relax. 2, that's better. 2, 3, 2, let's do the fill. Oh, that was okay. The fill was a little bit sloppy, but you know, in terms of time, not bad, not bad. Okay, so the next step after that, take the speed down to half again. So I was at 120. Now we're going to go half of that. We're going to go down to 60. This is going to give us one beat every 4 bars. Yeah, so we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, and oh, I'm a bit early. I'm a bit early there. That's okay. That's not a problem. Let's see if we can figure out how to do one hit every 4 bars. This will be a little bit more challenging still. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you can hear the metronome. 2, 3. 2, 3, 4. Okay, that was okay. A little bit. 2, 3. Here we go. Oh, so early, so early. Okay, so I'm rushing there. So this is a really good exercise in knowing exactly where you sit within the beat. My tendency is always to rush. I don't know why. I got too much energy. It's the morning for me. Maybe if this was at like 1 a.m., I might be a little bit might be a bit sleepy. But right now I'm wired. I don't drink coffee, but you know I had an apple this morning, so apparently that's good for waking you up. But that's the process. You can even go a step further. You can go half of that speed again and get one hit every 8 bars. That's super intense. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, and oh, okay, that was all right. That actually wasn't too bad. It's a different story if you're playing along. It gets a little bit harder. And again, you can go even one step further and half the speed again, and then you're going to have 16 bars in just one hit. Man, if you can do that, you are going to be like an unstoppable rhythm machine. But that's a super intense way of like going through the whole thing. But that's what I would recommend. Starting with the full track, then going to a bassless track if you can, then maybe just a drum track, and then paring down the drum track until you're basically playing with nothing at all. And you have to start, internalizing the time, and you're not having to rely on anything else. And one thing that helps, at least it helped me a lot, is to imagine what everything else is everything else is playing, specifically the drums as well, because that's the one that you want to really hone in on. So if I'm playing, if I'm playing that, I'm thinking in my mind, oh, that's really, I've never tried that before. Never tried to beatbox and play at the same time. Yeah, so I'm thinking in my mind, even if I can't, beatbox it out loud, that's what I'm thinking. yeah, I'm not going to try that again. But that's the process, and hopefully that answers your question. And just in case, by the way, if you're wondering where I'm getting these questions from, I sent an email list out to my email newsletter subscribers on Monday, I think, and I got like hundreds of responses, and I'm trying to answer as many as I can. We actually had a private, pardon me, it's a bit loud, a private live stream on Monday, just for the people who subscribe to the email newsletter. It was super cool. So if you're not a part of that community yet and you want to get a bunch of really cool free stuff, just head to becomeabassist.com, sign up there. I can send you my ultimate guide to the modes for bass. That's super cool. It shows you how modes work and how to actually use them in the real world. And we do it without getting into the weeds of like music theory, no big fancy jargony words, just like a simple, no BS approach to learning the modes. It's 100% free as well. So if you're not a part of the Become a Bassist community yet, head there, get that free guide, and it'll be super super fun. But let's go to the next question. Let's get another one from from email. And actually, some people were asking about this in the comments as well. Someone asked, "I have an amp that is not specifically for bass. Should I get a bass amp? Why or why not?" This is oh, everyone's saying, okay, there we go. Let's try that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so in terms of bass amps, you don't really want to use something that's a guitar amp for your bass. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, guitar amps are really not designed to handle those low frequencies. Yeah, it's going to probably blow your speaker or something. Actually, this is a good story. The very first amp I had was actually, it was a little PV guitar amp. And I did play a little bit of guitar, but I got heavy into bass pretty soon after. And I tried to play my bass through this guitar amp, and I blew it up really quick. It took maybe like a day or two. So you really do want to use an amp that is going to handle those low frequencies. If you have a keyboard amp, that's also an option, because they do have like those low notes, so it's not going to be as bad. You'll have less of a chance of blowing the speaker. Same if you plug into like a PA system. I've done that before for gigs, like super low key gigs where they don't want like a big massive bass amp sound. So that's an option as well. But if you are using a guitar amp, chances are you might want to start looking at investing in a bass amp that's going to actually handle those frequencies. In terms of what I'd recommend for you to buy as your like first bass amp, I used to hate the Fender Rumbles. They were horrible. They just sounded like a big old fart. The new ones though are actually quite good. I've been like converted. I don't have one for myself, but I would recommend them now because they've upgraded them and done a whole bunch of stuff. They sound way better now. So hopefully that answers your question. I also had a question. Let's see if I can find it. They were asking about what's the easiest way to lug around a bass amp. I can't find that comment anymore, but I use a trolley. I'm lazy. I don't want to carry things around that I don't need to. Even this bass amp over here, that right there. It's a great little amp. It's heavy though. It's before that I had like a big clunky Ampeg amp, and it was super awkward to carry. You kind of had to use two hands, or you end up being all like this. It was a bit rough. So trolley is the best thing to do. Get like a trolley. Like I got mine from Bunnings. I'm not sure. I don't think Bunnings is anywhere except New Zealand and Australia. But they've got like super cheap trolleys. Cost me I think $30, and then like an extra couple of bucks for like a bungee cord. Just hook it round. Just strap it there so it's not going to fall off if you're going up a hill or something. Done. Easy. That's what I would recommend. That's definitely what I would recommend for that. Don't carry stuff around. Actually, another really good story. This is kind of romantic actually. I've never told anyone this story on this channel before. But when I first moved to the city I was in now, I had a gig at the conservatorium, which was in like the suburb called Southbank. And because I was like new, and I'm like a country boy, I don't really know how parking works. At least I didn't back then. Like paid parking, like where I grew up, you just park wherever you want. There's no paid parking in like a little country town in like northern Queensland. It's not a thing. So I was like super freaked out about this parking situation. So I like got on Google and like Southbank parking, and then just picked the first one, booked it. Turns out it was like maybe a kilometer away from where I was supposed to be. And the gig I was supposed to have my upright bass, my electric bass, and my amp and a stand. So I had like a bunch of gear to carry. I ended up pinched a nerve or something in my back. I was like playing the gig, and my back just gets progressively more sore and more sore and more sore. It was horrible. It was super super awful. And then I ended up going home and woke up the next morning, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was like in that much pain, and my partner was there, and she like took care of me, and like, oh man, it was beautiful. I love her so much. Daniel Farmer. Is this the Daniel Farmer I think I know from Mackay? Plays with Stylus Crew. If it is, let me know. He asks, can you give me a run of your setup for live use? Absolutely. It's this bass, which I've been told is a Spectre Euro. I want to say like NX or LS or something. It's got like 2 letters. It's this bass, this cable, that one there, and that amp. That's it. I just plug straight in. I EQ the bass amp to the room. That's it. Super super simple. I don't mess with like pedals. That is the Daniel Farmer. No, good to see you here. Good to see you here. I think I'm heading up to Mackay maybe depending on how everything goes. I might just be on Zoom or something. So I'll see you, Daniel Farmer, there if you're there. That'll be cool. Okay, awesome. Let's go. Let's take some questions from the stream. There was some good ones before. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So Umut asked before we actually started the stream, can I recommend some books for learning sight reading? Yes, absolutely. Great question. For learning to read rhythms, the Bach cello suites, like Johann Sebastian Bach, like old school, whatever period it was, like classical or whatever. I don't know. There was like Baroque. I think it might be Baroque. The composer, check out his cello suites. Not only are they super beautiful and super musical, but they will definitely test your note reading abilities. They're mostly written in semiquavers or 16th notes, but it's not necessary to like specifically play them as 16th notes. So it might be written 1, 2, 3, 4. And you don't have to, that's how it's written, but you can like play with the time a little bit. You can play it rubato, you can speed things up a little bit, you can play whatever you want. So you might go, whatever it is. I can't remember the next part. But yeah, you can play with the time. You don't necessarily have to be specifically, really specific with the rhythm. So you can play around with it, and it's not going to be a terrible idea if you like get stuck a little bit and you have to, play through the notes. So for note reading, Bach cello suites. There's a great resource called the Petrucci Music Library. If you just search Google Petrucci Music Library, as in like John Petrucci, Rucci, Petrucci Music Library. It's a great resource. Just search for Bach cello suites in the Petrucci Music Library. You'll find all the notation. Great resource. For learning rhythms, which is probably harder in my opinion, check out Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It's all the James Jamerson bass lines. Super sick rhythms. Definitely a little bit trickier at least for me. I've struggled with reading rhythms. I still struggle with reading rhythms. My reading is not that great. But that's the idea. Now, we had another question about where the frets... okay. So Dale asked at the very start, this is before the stream even started, he was like the first one in. So hopefully, Dale, you're still watching. Dale Mouse, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He asks, do you start at the frets for the best sound? He's just starting out. So this is a good question. So where in the... in the bass, in the frets, are you supposed to fret for the best sound? Awesome question. Frank asks, and you put the links to the info on the replay. It's the same link, so just come back here at the same place. It's going to be here. So what you want to do, this is a great question, where to get the best sound in the frets. Basically, if say we're on, let's go this fret right here. This is the 7th fret. So we've got a lot of real estate in there. You can go all the way back here. You can be in the middle. You can be right up on the fret. You can be almost on top of the fret as well. So where are you supposed to put your finger for the best sound? The answer is as close to the fret as possible without being like right on top of the fret. If you're right on top of the fret, you run the risk of, instead of playing the note you actually want to play, duh. If you're right on top, it's going to be, you might get that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So you want to be as close to the fret as possible. Hopefully you can see this as well. Let me see. There we go. Yeah, see, so this is the fret that we're aiming for, the 7th fret right here. Just go a tiny little bit back from there. That's the ideal place. And also that's where you're going to use the least pressure, the least, what's the word? Force. The least amount of force in the note. So if I press down right here super lightly, oh, a bit more, right there, it's going to give me a great sounding note. If I go even a little bit back with the same amount of pressure, going to get that kind of thing, going to get that buzz, yeah? So if you're in the middle of the fret, you need more force. So if I press down harder, the buzz is going to go away. But if I'm right up on the fret, I can use as little energy as possible, as little force as possible, and it's going to have a great sound. The further you go back in the fret, the more force you need to use. Getting that buzz there. And yeah, when you start getting back there, if you're not using enough force, it'll end up sounding like the note underneath. Super, super ugly, yeah? People are saying the camera's crappy. It totally is. This is like, what is this, a computer from 2011. So yeah, it's a 9-year-old computer, so not the best camera in the world, but also not the worst. Okay, awesome. Hopefully Dale's still on and, asking about that. Good question. So, let's see. What other questions have we got? Okay, this is a good question. Tonya asks, why is the middle 8 or the interlude of the song always the hardest for me? This is a great question. So, in most songs, you've got like a verse, a chorus, and then you've got some kind of bridge. It's sometimes called the middle 8, the interlude, whatever you want to call it. This is a great question. Basically, it comes down to repetition. You've heard the verse how many times in the song? You might have 1, 2, 3 verses. The chorus you're going to hear at least 3, 4, 5, many times, especially if it's like a shorter chorus. So it's going to be ingrained in you really, really well. The bridge, though, only ever happens once. It's usually pretty short, maybe 8 bars, maybe 16 bars. So it's very, very common to get to the bridge and be like, shit, how does the bridge go? How does it? I can't remember the bridge. That's totally common. It happens to basically everyone. That's actually usually the first thing I learn in a song, because especially if it's a song I'm somewhat familiar with. So if I'm like learning a request for a corporate gig or like a wedding dance, that's a super common one. I'll have heard the songs before, so I like sort of know how they go. I sort of know how the choruses go. I sort of know how the verses go, but I'll never know how the bridge goes. So that's the first place I'm going to go. I'll go to, usually songs are structured in a roughly similar way. There's going to be verse, verse, chorus, and then the bridge. I always search for that bridge and learn that part first, and then go back and doing all that other stuff. So really, it just comes down to being familiar and being, repeating that stuff over and over and over again. If you heard the bridge as much as you heard the choruses and the verses, and as much as you played the choruses and the verses, it wouldn't be an issue for learning the middle 8. So I would just recommend as much as possible to drill that, just repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over and over until you can't possibly forget it. Okay, awesome. Tony says thanks so much. You're welcome. This is really fun. I'm having a good time. It is. I did only plan on doing half an hour, but we've got tons more questions. So let's take some more. Dale asks, how do you do 2 hammer-ons at the same time? What do you mean, Dale, exactly? Is 2 hammer-ons at the same time a thing? So maybe if you're like here, doing that kind of thing. Doing that kind of thing. If that's what you're asking about, then I would bar across the two strings here, and then hammer on with either the ring finger, depending on what fret. You can do it on the fret above. Probably don't want to go too far. It's going to break your hand. That's not a super common thing. I guess there'd be certain times where you could use that, probably in like a maybe more like a soloistic kind of thing. But yeah, that's what I would do for that. I hope that answers your questions. Yeah. Then Dell asks, what's the advantage of a 5-string bass? That's another good question. It's you have an extra string, you have extra range. So a lot of songs might have the need for going down to like a low D. So if I'm They might want that low D. Like for example, what's that song? Another Brick in the Wall. The bass line. You want, oh man, that low D. It feels really good. Uh. It doesn't make, it's not nearly as fun playing that up the octave. It's got no balls, you know, you need to have the balls. And you can do that with a lower, for this one I've just like lowered my E string to a D. But you know, if you're switching between like open tuning and like a drop D tuning, it can be a bit of a pain. So with a 5 string, you don't need to do that. You've just got that low D there, and it's like totally fine. You don't have to change anything about what you're doing. Now, do I prefer a 5 string or a 4 string? It doesn't really bother me. I'm comfortable on both. I've actually this bass over here, it's a 6 string. I actually got this when I was living in Kentucky. I would have been like 2012 I got that bass. It's super old now. But yeah, that's like, you know, whatever you want to do, it's all good. If you like a bass, I don't really like judge a bass on whether it's got 4 strings or 5 strings. I judge it on how it sounds, how it plays, and how it feels. Sometimes how it looks. Everyone says this one looks like a banana, which I think is hilarious because I love bananas. I had one yesterday. It was delicious. But actually, let me just... Oh. Back in regular tuning. Awesome. Yeah, Rick says, Swancott says, YouTube search for bass muting techniques. Someone asked about bass muting. I actually talked about that on the private live stream last time, talking about ghost notes, and I think I'll have to make a video about that. So that'll be fun. Yeah, that'll be cool. Let's take one more question. Steve asks, why can't I get my left hand to do what I want it to? Left-handed playing right-handed. Okay, this is a good question. Someone asked me this by email not too long ago. They asked, can a right-handed person learn to play left-handed and vice versa? And absolutely, it's totally possible. The trick with getting your hand to do what you want it to is, it's not super, you know, not a sexy answer, but it's practice. You've got to whatever you're trying to do, you've got to do it over and over and over and over until it's second nature to you. So when I'm playing, for example, what's like even just doing like scale exercises. I'm not really thinking about it anymore. It's kind of ingrained in muscle memory. So, but that's only because I've done it, you know, hundreds of thousands of times. All that kind of stuff. So I don't really think about it that much. You want to do as much as possible, develop a muscle memory, and the way you do that is by going it over and over and over again. There is a really good book called The Talent Code by a guy named, I think, Daniel Coyle or John Coyle. No, Daniel. I'm pretty sure it's Daniel Coyle. Check that book out. It's really good. It talks about the concept of deep practice and doing things and practicing in a way that, you know, actually levels up whatever you're trying to do. The trick is to go to the absolute edge of your comfort zone, try and push and stay there as much as possible, and get that deep practice in. So yeah, that's exactly what you want to do to, you know, make your left hand do what you want it to, make the right hand do what you want it to. You can absolutely learn to play right-handed if you're left-handed and vice versa. It's going to take some time, but it's going to take time whether you're like, if you're right-hander learning, you know, right-hand stuff. For me, I think the left hand has to be more dexterous for me with the fretting rather than the plucking. The plucking isn't necessarily lazy, but I think you have to do a little bit more with the left hand. So, and I'm not left-handed, but my left hand can do things that my right absolutely can't. Oh yeah, I can pluck with my left hand. That's not too bad. It's a bit rough, but that's, you know, that's the idea. Oh, here's a personal question. What inspired you to play bass? By Oakapo? I'm not sure how. Oh, Steve from Stranger Things. Nice, good choice. Early inspirations, definitely Paul McCartney. Like the very first bass line I ever learnt. Oh wait, what am I doing? That's it. Couldn't remember the bass line. Ah, man. Should have done a bit of warming up before I started this. So he's a huge, big influence. Other ones are, I was raised on, well, raised. I like sort out like a bunch of like classic rock stuff. So like the Led Zeppelins. It's like John Paul Jones. He's a huge influence. Uh, Roger Waters more for his songwriting than his bass playing. Although I do like a lot of his bass playing. So yeah, those are the classic rock guys are the ones who are super inspirational to me. Later on, I discovered like jazz music. So like Ray Brown, huge influence on how I approach playing upright bass. Same with Christian McBride, really really good upright bass players. Uh, yeah, so and there's so many amazing bass players out there right now. It's so cool to see so much. Like you see people complaining like, oh, this music's no good these days. There's so much good music these days. If you know where to look, I'm like always completely gobsmacked by the level of musicianship by so many people. Ah, yeah, amazing. And John says Robbie Merrill from Godsmack is actually right-handed, but had to learn to play bass left-handed due to a hand injury. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks, John. So that answers. I can't remember whose question it was, but that's really good to know. So it's possible. It's definitely possible. Okay, awesome. So let's take. I know I said one more, but I'm on a roll. So let's take one final question. Let's see. We've got some people asking how do I play Summer Days, or can I like do full song tutorials. I'm probably not going to do that. Uh, but yeah, I'd rather talk about concepts than like how to play specific songs, because concepts you can apply to every song. If you just learn specific songs, you have to kind of draw the concepts out, which is definitely possible. But I'd rather just talk about the concepts directly. Now, Gonza recommends. Okay. So he asks a couple of questions. He asks, "What about solos? Do you like playing them? Any advice to start or improve skills for someone that wants to play them? And do you recommend any specific bass player that plays solos?" Okay. So solos. Do I like playing them? I could I could take them or I could leave them. There was I was actually doing a recording session. When was it? It was before all the coronavirus stuff. I think it was in like December. Yeah, because it was Australia was burning. That's right. So many disasters going on right now. It's terrible. All you can do is laugh, I guess. Yeah, so it was in December, and the artist wanted me to play a bass solo on the recording. I was happy to do it, but at the same time I was like, does this song really need a bass solo? And it was on upright, so and it's a cool song, and I did I think 4 or 5 run throughs of it, uh, and I wasn't really happy with any of them. But I'm like, if that's really what you want, like you can have it, you can use it if you want. And in the end, they ended up cutting it. So I'm like, thank God, because like I said, I wasn't like super happy with the performance. So they just kind of cut it in post and replaced it with a guitar solo. I'm like, yes, that is the right choice, not only for the song but also for me personally, because solos. Uh, Daniel asks, what's your favorite bass line and why? Oh man, that question is too difficult. I'm not sure I can ever answer that in my life. Um, yeah, sorry. Rick asks, am I on Patreon? No, I'm not on Patreon. Is that something you guys want? What would you want in a Patreon if I was to do one? I had thought about it ages ago, but I dismissed it and decided to go down the making my own courses and stuff. Like I've got my technique course, my groove course, my learning how to play by ear course. Yeah, so I just decided not to do the Patreon thing. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I know I've said this twice already, but this is a good question. Guitar Man asks, "What's the difference between playing an upright to playing an electric bass?" This is people ask me like if I prefer playing upright or electric, and I'm just like, you can't compare them. They serve the same function, but in terms of how they feel, it's apples and oranges. You can't compare them. So in terms of the actual sound, upright bass has a very short kind of attack. It has like a big explosion of sound at the start and then a very short tail when the note kind of dies off. Electric bass is the opposite. It has a very long tail. Like this, that note goes forever, it's still going. And it's like present, where if you did that on an upright bass, the note would be like, you wouldn't be able to hear it by now. So that's one difference in terms of sound. In terms of feel, different styles just feel right on different instruments. So like if you're playing like rock, you don't want to be playing it on an upright bass. But if I'm playing like a walking bass line, I want to play that walking bass line on an upright bass. Like you can play walking bass lines on electric bass. But it doesn't feel the same. It feels so much better to play a walking bass line on an actual upright bass. It just feels so much better to do that rather than to play it on an electric bass. Now there are a bunch of things you can do to make your upright bass, make your electric bass feel more like an upright bass. I talked about this in a video maybe 2 months ago. I talked about doing things like shortening the notes by doing some palm muting. So you might do something like this. But, you know, at the same, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same. And it's all about the feel. Like, once you get the notes and everything, like the notes are very important, but the feel and how everything sits, it's almost more important than the actual notes you're playing. If you're playing like the wrong notes, but doing it with conviction and with groove and with attitude, you can get away with so much. Now, I'm definitely not saying don't play the right notes. As much as you can, try and play the, quote unquote correct notes, but you'll find that the more you study the notes, the more you realize that it's the rhythm that really ties everything together. Okay, so we've gone, almost 15 minutes over at this point. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for your questions. I will be doing one more live stream this week, and that's going to be at these ones are at like 8:30 on the east coast of the US, which makes it like the middle of the night for Europe. So I'm doing the next one at a Europe-friendly time. It's going to be 6:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the US. That makes it 8:30 p.m. if you're in Australia. And then whatever the times are, it's like 10:30 in GMT, 11:30 in Central European time, and then Eastern European time, I think it's 12:30 p.m. So if you are, if you're in Europe and you're probably not watching this, then I'm sorry. But hopefully you can catch the next one at a friendlier time. And if you are in the US and you want to get up at like 6:30 in the morning and check this out while you're in quarantine, absolutely, that'd be fun. I'd love to have you all. And once again, I'm sending like my absolute pardon me. Sorry guys. I'm sending my like biggest, warmest hugs no matter where you are. So yeah, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. And treat yourself well. Wash your hands, stay home if you can, and we'll get through this together. So thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. I love yous all, and I'll catch you later. See you later.